Hello guys, welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about Azure Lane Fallen Lord, ladies and gents. So yeah, let's begin. We would go to the perspective of our little Ayanami, as Ayanami would be seeing that of the weird man who actually saved that of Amagi, as he would be walking right next to that of Miss right next to their leader Nagato, as they would be discussing that of trade and also an alliance, mostly towards destroying the sirens. As while doing so, she would see the three others there, three of the other members of this kingdom, as they call themselves. One of them was the woman with red hair and seems to be wielding that of a large golden katana, or at least what resembles a katana. She would seem to have prosthetic limbs, like for example her leg and her arm. The other seems to be a man. Well, what she believes to be a man, not human, especially since his limbs are unproportional to his actual body. It's almost unnatural. And the third was definitely not human. He almost resembles that of a demon. In fact, one of his horns seems to be gouging out his eye. In fact, he seems to just ignore the thing. As well seeing this, the man with the multiple horns would look at her. She would be afraid. I should say, sir? As the man would walk up to her. As the man would lean down. Or at least kneel down, as he would say. Hello there, girl. You may call me Moog. Well, Mogma was once a name of mine, though I prefer to be called the Baron of Blood. Though I may not be a lord anymore, I still serve under his lordship still, as his loyal servant, and the one that will keep the peace, and a representative for blood magic. Wait for a second, guys, watching an analog horror. As we would go to the perspective of Suikaku, as while looking at some of the others, she would see that the man known as Moog, or at least that's what she heard from him, as as she would look towards the other member, specifically that of the woman known as Melania. As she walked up to her. Doing so, she would say, "I believe we never met. Um, you must be Melina, right?" As after doing so, she would say, "Yes, though His Majesty did allow you to go into his kingdom, you were unable to meet me since I was busy training the troops," She would say, with a somewhat cold tone, as she would also notice something. Some of the exposed skin that she would basically show seems to be infected. As she would ask, may I ask, what happened to your skin?" After saying this, the woman known as Melania would look at her and would say, "I would rather not talk about it." As saying so, she would leave, going towards a different area, wanting to wander around. But before she left, she would say, "Brother, try not to get too angered, especially since that we're going to be envoys." As after hearing that, the man would say this, "Whatever, sister. For now, I have nothing to deal with anything here. Besides, the only reason why I joined him is because of his strength." As after saying so, he would go back onto his boat, as he would tell the people that were basically rowing the boat in the first place to bring him back to the island. As when Sigaku would see this, she would say, "So they're both brother and sister?" As we would go now back to our protagonist's perspective, as we would go back to the perspective of Izuku, Izuku would be walking with that of Nagato, as you would say. So, may I ask, what were your encounters with the sirens, and what exactly are you? As after saying so, Rex would say, anyway, continuing on, I meant to say was, as Izuku would be talking to her, and after hearing that question, he would say, well, my first encounter with them was when I first got these powers. Or more specifically, when I got into this world. Hearing this, she would say, wait, what do you mean by, as he would continue, you see, before I became this, before I got into this world, I was originally a part of a world where death was never an option. You see, my world was cursed. People were never allowed to breed, not allowed to die. We're essentially immortal, forever living, but we are unable to move on. When we die, our souls just disappear, leaving nothing more than corpses. Walking corpses that need souls, so they rip apart each other. It was thanks to a certain one person that created this whole world. Her name was America, the Eternal, the Goddess. As while hearing this, she would say, a goddess? As he would say, yes. And not only that, she was my wife's, my consort's mother. Saying these words, she would say, your consort? Your wife? Wait, you were married? But you look so young, and as he would say, like I said, immortality, or at least what used to be it, seems I no longer have that immortality. Though I'm happy that I'm able to die, well, at least one day, I would rather not talk about that much. But either way, you see, after I married my consort, I became something known as an Elden Lord. After multiple trials, after multiple deaths, and after multiple, and I mean multiple attempts, I did it. Though, after we made our kingdom, after bringing order, it was nearly destroyed by them. The old ones. The ones that call themselves the true gods of this world. They tore apart that place, leaving nothing but darkness. The only the only reason why I'm here is because she sacrificed herself. Saying these words, she would say, she she sacrificed herself, as you'd say, yes, it was my fault for letting her. I could I could have helped, but I was an idiot. I was weak then. Even if with my power, the power of a dragon, with the worship of a dragon, I was unable to save her. I wished I was able to save her. Now she's gone. All gone. As she would say, after saying this, she would look at him and would say, hey, it's not your fault. And besides, don't you think it's a bit, you know, a bit sad? Saying this, he would say, yes, but I still hate it. Anyway, continuing on, as Nagato would say, um, it wasn't your fault, and what do you mean you're an Elden Lord? As he would continue saying, you see, my wife, my consort, she was just not exactly human. You see, she was something known as a Empyrean, essentially a part god. And because of that, she needed someone to rule by her side. And so that is what the title of Elden Lord is. I am merely her consort. But I was okay with that. She saved me multiple times, and I gladly serve her again. But now she's gone. Disappeared. And she would just stay silent. As Nagato would ask, and what about your first encounter with the sirens? As you continue, after my world was destroyed by those gods, she was able to summon in a portal for our kingdom to survive. But in the process, something happened. It caused me to almost feel like I'm bounded to the island, or at least the chunk of land that was once my kingdom. Even though some of the survivors were okay, I still felt pressure, wanting to protect them, and that manifested into something. I felt like my body was able to walk on water. And not only that, I was able to use that to my advantage, allowing me to summon whatever these things are. As something would start to happen, multiple, almost mental cube type things would start to surround them. As a partial deployment of what seems to be riggings appears. Nagato would be surprised and would say, "Wait, you're a Kansen? Wait, that would mean," as he would say, "May I ask to explain what are Kansen?" Though I was able to gain some information from Amagi, I was still, well, interested in what they are exactly. Hearing this, she would start to explain. Kansen are essentially humanoid ships, and are basically just essentially the only, and I mean only, defense against the sirens currently. Which, by the way, is kind of stupid to be honest. Why not make something a little bit more, well, something more interesting than just anime girl? But still, well, considering it's a gacha, it makes sense. But still, but either way. Anyway, continuing on, as after explaining the whole thing about, you know, the sirens and also the Kansen relationship, and also a bit more about the Kansen, he would say, "So that would make me the first male Kansen, am I right?" And she would say, "Yes, but at the same time, you're also not. Your powers seem to be not be connected to the mental cubes." As after hearing that, he would say, "Interesting." As she would ask another question. "So, about everything, why do you still protect your country even though you're at your last legs?" Hearing that question, he would say, "I only do it because of her, and I promise to make that punchy proud, to make her proud of me, and one day, if I do die, I'll at least be able to see her again. For now, I'll become my country's leader and keep my country safe, no matter what." Hearing this, Naruto would just be surprised, but almost feel sympathetic, knowing that same problem. And so we'll be ending off this episode right up here, guys. So yeah, bye bye.